Good afternoon, everybody. This is David Stearns with Haley Marketing, and welcome to today's Lunch with Haley event. Today we have what looks to be a very popular topic, social recruiting, making the not too bold assumption that everybody who is dialed in for today's webinar is struggling to find talent. And in fact, what we're going to talk about today in a lot of depth is one of what we call the 4 pillars of recruitment marketing, and I'll give you a review of those 4 pillars in just a little bit, but we're really going to drive into social recruiting and specifically ways to not just use social media, but to build more of a social community with candidates, with former candidates, with referral sources, and the idea being we're going to try to find ways to help connect you to more active and passive job seekers to get more of those open assignments filled. Now, before we jump in and talk about just social recruiting, we'd like to understand recruitment marketing as a whole, because social recruiting is, as I mentioned, one of the 4 pillars of recruitment marketing. And as you're thinking about recruiting, even as we're going through today's webinar, I want you to be thinking about what are all the different ways we can attract talent? How can we get more people applying to our jobs? And recruitment marketing, the definition of it, according to Wikipedia, recruitment marketing is the strategies and tactics that an organization uses to find, attract, engage, and nurture talent before they apply for a job. So we're doing everything before the people are ready to apply. Kind of as we like to put it, recruitment marketing is everything that goes into getting a job candidate to click the apply button. And that's what today we're going to be looking at social media. We're going to be looking at talent communities. We're going to be looking at all the things that you can do to get people to that apply button. But as I said, let me do a quick recap of the 4 pillars of recruitment marketing. As you're thinking about getting people to your jobs and you're thinking about increasing placement rates, I want you to think about all 4 of these areas, because the social recruiting we're going to do for today's hour together is really going to interact with these other 3 methods for getting candidates to your jobs. So first is your career site. Was literally talking with a client this morning, and we were trading emails, and we were looking at the career site on their page, and the number of people who are visiting and seeing jobs, the number of people who are clicking the apply online button, and the number of people who are completing the application. And this company is seeing that 59% of the people who click apply online, they actually did click that apply button, so their recruitment marketing worked. But 59% of them don't submit the application. Only 41% submit the application. So for this organization, we really have to look at the career site and where are all the leaks that we're losing talent once they get to the website, but before they've completed that job application. We're going to actually talk about a couple of those leaks later on. The second is job ads and distribution. And when you're short on candidates, you may think, we just need to increase our budget. We need to spend more on job posts. And that might be true. Maybe you're under budgeting, underspending on job posts, but maybe you're spending in the wrong ways. Maybe you're spending too much on jobs that are easily filled and they're eating up your budget and not putting enough dollars towards those that really need paid support. So in job ads and distribution, if you missed Matt Lozar on our team's webinar on programmatic advertising, I would strongly recommend going to watch that Lunch with Haley on demand, where we talked about programmatic, but you're looking for ways to make your job ads and your job distribution more cost-effective and a higher return on investment by getting more eyeballs on the jobs that are harder to fill and spending less on the jobs that were easy to fill. And today's webinar is social recruiting, so we're going to get into all the details of using social media in just 1 minute. And then the last pillar is employment branding. This came up this morning, and as I've said in a couple of past Lunch with Haley's, one of the things we do internally for our team is every Thursday morning we do a class, 8:30 a.m. to 9:30, called Be a Consultant. And I teach the class, and we work with our team on strategies for improving their consulting skills. And during this morning's class, we went to online and we went to Google for jobs, and we looked up a specific job at one of our clients. And we were really happy to see that the second job in the Google for Jobs box came right from their career site. You could see their job number 2. But the other two jobs that were in that Google box were brands that were well-known, big companies. So think about it. If you're a candidate and you search for a job and you go to Google for jobs, it's not enough to just be in the Google results. You want to be a brand that people know about. So, maybe you're not as well known as Google or Facebook or somebody that everybody knows. Maybe you're not as well known as the largest employers in your community, but you can still have a brand that says, we're a great company to work with. We're an organization you can trust to help manage your career. We're sort of the talent agents for professionals in our market. We're the people here to represent you. And whether we're representing you for a light industrial job or a CEO's role, you want your brand to be about being a great representative for talent in your marketplace, an organization that people can trust. And when you look at your total recruitment marketing strategy, you want to be thinking about all four pillars. So we're going to transition now to talking about social recruiting. But as we do, just keep in the back of your mind, how is social recruiting driving people to our website? And are we losing people when they go to social media to our website before they apply? How is social media impacting our job ads and our job distribution? Are we counterbalancing advertising on social with our job distribution on social, with other content that we share on social? And then, is our employment brand there? So if we're doing a lot of work on social media, is it strengthening our brand? Is it weakening our brand? Or is it doing none of the above? We don't even have a brand. So you're going to be thinking about how all of these things play together in a more holistic recruitment marketing strategy. But for today, let's change and specifically look at social recruiting. So one of the key principles of social recruiting, and I forgot there was one other slide that I want to say before we even jump into social recruiting. I mean, this comes from experience that I've had dealing with some of our clients. I've had dealing with people at presentations I made, and that social recruiting is not just posting jobs on social media. Literally, I had this conversation with somebody last week. It's an executive recruiting firm. They want immediate response when they're trying to get help filling a job. And so when they advertise a job, they're treating social media like it's another job board. And if all you're doing on social media is blasting jobs at people and expecting them to respond, it's not going to work. Think about social media. What is it? It's social. It's media. It's for connecting people. So people are interested in your jobs, but that's not all they're interested in. And for social media to be an effective recruiting channel, we have to think beyond jobs. We have to think about using social media to better attract and nurture relationships with both active and passive job seekers. And I want to pause on this for just a second. So the two goals of doing social recruiting, attract and nurture. First, we have to get people aware that you exist. We have to get them aware of what you do for a living. We have to get them aware of the kinds of people you help find employment. We have to get them interested in visiting your website and get them to know who you are. But then that's not enough. We have to nurture relationships because people, there's an old adage in sales, people will do business with companies they trust. And really the same is true in recruiting. Individuals will want to work for brands they trust. My son is a junior in college, and he's gone to career fairs at his school for internships the last couple of years. And he said, Dad, when you go to these career fairs, it's amazing. So there'll be a table there from a Facebook, and there'll be a table from Microsoft. And their lines are huge. And then there's these other companies that nobody's ever heard of. No one's going to their table. And kudos to my kiddo. He went to the tables where nobody was standing and talked to all those recruiters and walked away with 5 job offers. But for your business, think about you're the table that no one's going to because people don't know staffing and recruiting firms like they know the big brands in your market. And so we have to not just attract people by getting them to see our name or our jobs, but we have to nurture relationships so people trust us, so that we build familiarity with our target audience, so that they want to have us represent them when they're in their job hunts. And then the last line on screen now is we have to be having a strategy on social media that is both for active and passive job seekers. So there's 5 key principles behind social recruiting that we're going to talk about today. First one repeats what I just said. You need two strategies. You need an active job seeker strategy, which is going to be more about jobs, and a passive talent attraction strategy. You need to think about ways to generate more candidate referrals. Social media, inherently, you're dealing with people you're connected to. You're dealing with people your recruiters and salespeople are connected to. And you're dealing with the connections of the people you're connected to. It's about the network. So we have to look at social media as a way to build a network of referral sources. We also have to look at social media as a way to build talent networks. Can I build talent communities with the people that I normally place? Or can I find talent networks that I can become an integral part of the talent community? Realistically, social media isn't your own database, but practically it's an extension of your ATS. So the people in your ATS are people who are applied to for a job with you. They were active job seekers. Your social networks, though, that's your passive ATS. So I can't hammer my passive ATS with jobs, but I have to think about it like a network where I'm trying to build relationships with people who will see me as a career coach, as an expert on compensation, as an expert on which employers offer the best jobs, as someone they can trust to help them with their career. We also want to use social media as a way to re-engage and reactivate candidates. So part of our strategy is to bring people back that we've had a relationship with in the past. So they're probably deep in our ATS. We may not be talking to them. We may or may not be sending them emails. How do we use social media to get them re-engaged with our brand and to reconvert them from passive job seeker to, again, being active candidates that we can place? And lastly, social recruiting is about positioning. So how do we position your organization as the best place to work in your industry, in the local community, in the staffing industry? You want candidates, particularly people already working as temporary employees or contract employees, to see you as the best option for anybody interested in a temp job. And even people who aren't thinking about temp, to see you as the best place to work or as a best partner to find work in your community. So these 5 strategies, as we get started to get into the specific tactical examples, keep bringing them mentally back to these 5 strategies that should drive your overall game plan for social media. All right, our active job seekers. What we're trying to do here, promote jobs. It's really that straightforward. We're thinking about, I've got people who are looking for work, so I want to promote jobs. I want to promote job fairs. I want to promote things that would appeal to someone who is looking for work. I want to build my company brand, because if a temporary employee can work for 5, 10, 25, 100 different staffing companies in your market, why should they choose you? What's your online reputation? Do you have enough star ratings on Indeed and Glassdoor and Facebook and Google reviews? If I Google your company name, am I seeing positive stories about you? Am I reading press releases? Am I seeing you affiliated with other organizations? Basically, if I'm a candidate, am I seeing you everywhere? Those reviews, if you are less than 3 stars, that is candidate death. That will absolutely chase people away from wanting to apply with your organization, because they will just think you're not that great an organization to work for or work with. You don't have to be 5 stars, though. And in fact, there's actually been some research done that the optimal rating is somewhere between 3 and 5. But where you show you're human, you make mistakes. It's okay that you have some negative reviews, but the preponderance of reviews are 3, 4, and 5 stars, and ideally mostly 4 and 5-star reviews. So the best score would be probably mid-4s on your reviews. But in the staffing industry, our challenge is most of the people we talk to, we don't place. So those are the people who go online and leave negative reviews. So we need to have a proactive strategy of reaching out to every candidate after an interview, every candidate after a placement, every candidate after they get their first paycheck, and say, how do we do? Are you happy with the service from our company? What can we do better? If you had a great experience, would you leave us a review? You can't get everybody to leave you a review, but being proactive will get a far larger percentage of your candidates to leave you a positive review to strengthen your overall brand, and again, to avoid that low score that comes from the unplaceable candidates. And again, active job seekers, we want to be asking people for referrals. We want to make sure that our candidates are finding the jobs, and we want to make sure that our candidates know that we will pay them, we will reward them for referring their friends. We want to make it easy for them to share jobs, easy for them to tell their friends. We want to proactively encourage referrals to happen. With active job seekers, it's really simple. It's about getting your jobs found by the right people at the right time. And we're going to talk about specific strategies to do that, but I want you to think about maybe 10% at best right now. It's probably actually about 5% of the market are active job seekers. People who are on social media thinking about, I wonder if I can find a job opportunity. So I don't want to bombard the other percentage of people with jobs, but for those active, I need a strategy to be where they're looking, when they're looking, and then share information that makes them want to interact with our company, our website, and the specific job openings we have. Passive job seekers. This is where it gets a little more fun. So passive job seekers is about creating engaging content. Engaging content is something that's emotional. It tugs at your heartstrings. There's an adage in advertising that if you want an ad to work, you use babies and puppies, or either one. Well, there are certain pictures that are emotional, and you want to have pictures that either resonate with your target audience or that your target audience sees themselves as being just like that individual. Ideally, real pictures of real people. And I know there's a sample on screen that's a stock photo, and you can't get real pictures. It's okay to use stock photos, but ideally real pictures. We also want to make our content educational. So we want to be teaching people things. If we're a brand on social media and we're there to help people find a career, we have to be offering helpful information. That information can be near to higher tips on on resumes and interviewing and how to do references and provide references, but it also can be further up the career funnel, how to set yourself up for promotion, what to do when you've got a manager who you don't get along with. Everything that's a challenge for an individual in managing his or her career leads to what can be useful educational content that would be very relevant coming from a staffing company. And lastly, entertaining. I think this is the biggest challenge. If you want to engage people on social media, you want things that are funny. You want things that are stories that bring a tear to your eye. And if we can provide entertainment through social, telling success stories, making your candidates the heroes of the information you're sharing on social media. What do I mean by that? Let's say you've helped put a lot of younger kids to work coming right out of college. Those are great stories, how you help people get their first job and what it meant to their career. Or maybe you helped a stay-at-home mom or dad re-enter the workforce. And so you can talk about how you help somebody who didn't feel great about their career opportunities get to work. Or maybe you help somebody make a career transition and they didn't have the transferable skills they thought they needed to apply directly for a job, so they came to you, you got them a job, and that led to a new opportunity. These are all success stories. So stories where the temporary worker is the hero, but you as the staffing company tell the story. And as the storyteller, you can really touch on people's emotions about how your company is there to help people better themselves, get their first job, advance in their career, and able to make the money to send their kids to college. I mean, whatever the value is, understand you're not just putting bodies in jobs for your clients. You're helping people accomplish their life's goals. Those are the people you're putting to work. Telling their stories on social can make for really engaging. And when I say entertaining, it doesn't just mean something that makes you laugh. It means something that is worth your time to read, that you would stop, click the like button, click the share button. You said, wow, that's just a great story. We also want to think about reasons to get people from passive to active. And we'll talk about some specifics in just a minute. But if you brainstorm all of the reasons that somebody would look for a new job, your social recruiting strategy to passive job seekers should include content that's talking about ways to overcome the issues they're having in their current job and how your company represents dozens, hundreds, or thousands of new job opportunities. On social, we want to build talent communities. So if I placed IT professionals in New York City, I might want to have a group on Facebook, a group on LinkedIn for that talent community that's tied to skill discipline and geographic market. And I want to nurture that community, not with just job information, but with information that's specific to helping those people advance their careers. It may be resources for training. It may be resources for soft skills development. It may be career coaching. Submit us a question, we'll answer it for you. It could be not just text. It could be videos. It could be podcasts that deal with supporting a talent community. Because if I can get the passive job seeker involved in the talent community, then when they're ready to look for jobs, our community becomes a place to find a job. And just like with the active, we want to think about using our passive job seekers to submit referrals because they may not be ready to be active, but they know people who are. So we want to be regularly asking our passive job seekers for referrals. All right, again with passive, the reasons people change jobs. And this is not a comprehensive list, just a little quick brainstorming I did for today's webinar. A lot of people think money is the #1 reason people change jobs, or maybe it's benefits. But really the last one on the list is the #1 reason. People don't quit jobs, they quit managers. And you want to think about all of the reasons an individual would quit their manager. Maybe they're not being heard. Maybe they're being overworked. Maybe they feel like they're not being treated fairly. And then you can design your advertisements, your content, your social sharing graphics around those reasons people change roles. And there's a couple pictures on screen now just to kind of show you. They can be sort of silly, like the work shouldn't hurt, or the you deserve better. But the idea is make the image capture your eyeballs, and then make the subject matter be something around the reasons people change jobs. And again, attracting the passive job seeker to become active should only be one part of your social recruiting strategy, but it is an integral part of getting passive job seekers to actually apply to jobs. So social recruiting, it's about connecting with people. So you need people to know who these people are. Sorry, I stuttered over that one. But what this means is we're trying to build an audience, a talent community, a better relationship with the candidates in our database, a better relationship with the people who follow us on Facebook or the people we're connected to. And if we're going to develop a content strategy, determine what we're going to share on social media, we really have to know our audience. And in marketing speak, we talk about building personas. Now, personas are a fancy word, just means we build a profile of what our average candidate looks like. Now, a persona, there's a picture on screen of a sample one. You do things in building a persona that you would not do in active candidate recruiting because they're discriminatory. And it doesn't mean we're looking for Maggie who's 52 and has these specific demographic traits. But that what we're trying to do is define, hey, we have one type of candidate that tends to be in this age range, tends to have this type of demographic profile. And then we have other candidates who are in these other demographic profiles. We want to build as many different personas as fit your audience. And the reason we do this is not to discriminate in our advertising, quite the contrary, so that we can be designing ads, we can be designing content that our audience will find engaging. I'll tell a quick story. So we were doing a website design for a healthcare staffing company, and the healthcare staffing company said, we really want our new design to be trendy, vibrant, young, and hip. We really want to attract the millennial nurses to the website. And we said, that sounds like a great goal. Before we do that, can we go survey your nurses and learn a little bit about them? And they said, sure. And what we found out is that the majority of their nurses were over age 40, that trendy and hip was the last thing they wanted in a healthcare staffing company, that they were cared about relationships. They wanted an organization that treated them like a person. It was about caring, not cool. So by knowing the audience, it completely changed their approach to designing their website, even their approach to providing service. With social recruiting, knowing our audience, where they are in their career, where they are in their stage of life, the kinds of challenges and interests people have, allow us to build profiles, and then we can start to match content. If I know a certain audience is on Instagram, well, then I can build content that's appropriate for Instagram for that audience. But if another part of my audience is only on LinkedIn, I can have a different content plan that fits my LinkedIn audience. And that's the purpose of doing the personas, is particularly for those passive job seekers. We have to get inside their heads by really understanding who they are, how they think, and what motivates them to take action. And our social recruiting content strategy, we need to connect with our audience emotionally and intellectually. And when we're thinking about filling jobs, we tend to be really rational, thinking about, I've got the job, it's got these requirements, it's awesome for somebody interested in X, but that tends to be very left-brained, excuse me. We need a little right brain on the creative side. Okay, so the social recruiting funnel. Let's take a look at that. And what we're talking about here is what happens as somebody goes from passive to active, because it's important to think about this funnel as you design your recruiting strategy. So the funnel starts with somebody being a content seeker. They're not looking for a job. They're not looking for a staffing company. They're looking for answers to questions. At the content seeker stage, we need to capture their attention. It could be fun content, it could be engaging content, it could be useful content, but that's our goal. Then we need to get people to be the next level, which is to become passive candidates. And at the passive candidate stage, now they're interested in looking for a new job. They may not be really researching our jobs yet, but they're starting to make that transition of, I'm really not that happy. So I might be open to looking at opportunities. And of course, if we do our job well, then we get them to the jobs. Then they become active job seekers. Now we're transitioning from engaging content to selling jobs and creating interest in our company. Employment branding really starts to take over as we're transitioning from passive to active job seekers. And the bottom of the funnel is getting people to apply and really thinking about the conversion path. So how many people are seeing us on social media and going to our website? How many people are going from our website to our jobs, and then from our jobs to apply? And you look at Google Analytics, or you work with your web development company to look at Google Analytics to figure out where are we losing people, and how do we plug the gaps, plug the leaks in this conversion path so that the maximum conversion from content seeker to passive job candidate to active to apply happens. That example I mentioned earlier, where 59% of people who are going from active to apply are falling off. Actually, in that particular case, it's even going from apply, clicking the apply button, to completing the apply are falling off. We want to go back up the funnel and start at the bottom, optimizing. The bottom is optimizing the career site. The active job seekers is optimizing your website and your job sharing and your job distribution. The passive job seekers is optimizing your social content sharing. Okay, this is all well and good. This has all been strategic, high-level stuff, but let's get to the specifics. What should you actually do when it comes to social media and recruiting? And for the next half hour, we're going to dive into some specific tactics. If you've not already downloaded the slides and you need to get these, they're all available at lunchwithhaley.com. The recording from today's webinar will be added to that site as well. So if you don't keep up with all the ideas that we're going to throw out here, don't feel bad. They'll be available to download after the webinar is done. All right, so the first thing is to brainstorm social recruiting channels. And I made a list for today's webinar. It is definitely not a comprehensive list, but we only had an hour to do today's webinar, and these are the things I wanted to get through. The first three are the big three in social media: LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and we're going to talk about strategies for the big three social media channels. But that's not all there is to social media. Then there's the up-and-comers, the Instagram and Snapchat, that's more popular with the younger workers and even the teenage set who are going to become tomorrow's workers. But we have to think about how do we engage those people on channels that as business people, as staffing company owners, we might not use as much ourselves. We also want to look outside of social media sites and think about industry community sites. We're going to look at a couple examples of industry community sites, but there are people who have already built amazing talent communities, and there are ways you can leverage the audience they already have to become part of that industry community to drive traffic to your website. We talked a little bit already about review sites. That is a social recruiting channel. How do we get more positive reviews so that whenever somebody goes to Glassdoor or Indeed, or they even do a search on Google, and in the Google for Jobs box, it pulls back the reviews, they're seeing great reviews about your company. And then there's video. How are we going to be using YouTube and video on other social sites as a means to attract talent? SEO and PPC, we don't think of search engine optimization and pay-per-click advertising as social media, but we're going to talk a little bit about how those two types of search engine marketing are used to enhance what you're doing with social media and how social engagement actually improves search engine optimization. And lastly, there's our tried and true friend, email and texting. And again, email and texting, we don't think about as social recruiting, but really it is social. It's direct messaging to people you have a relationship with. And you can enhance and nurture that relationship with your email and texting, or you can damage that relationship depending on how you're using this direct communication channel. And what this screen is designed, this whole slide is designed to illustrate is social recruiting is about thinking about all the different channels of communication you have with people. I didn't include the telephone on here, but that's part of it. I didn't include chatbots, but that's part of it. Everywhere you communicate with people is an opportunity to build or detract from the social relationship. But getting into specifics, let's start with LinkedIn. Obviously, there's a ton you can do with LinkedIn, and who today is not doing at least some form of recruiting without using LinkedIn? So starting with, there's your company page. Is it well branded? Is it well branded from a candidate perspective? Does it help tell your story with engaging visuals, with copy that's about you and how you're there to serve the candidate, what you do for them? Are you doing status updates regularly? And not just you as a company doing status updates, but the owners of the company doing updates, key employees doing updates, all the salespeople, all the recruiters doing updates, because as everybody in the company shares content, their networks see your ideas, see your content, and you're increasing the distribution by orders of magnitude by getting more people involved in the status updates. Then there's direct messaging, whether it's in-mail that you're paying for, or even better, using just messaging with people you've connected to. Am I using one-to-one messaging as a way to build relationships with talent and talent influencers to get more people to our jobs and our website? Then there's liking, sharing, and commenting. Do you have people in your organization liking, sharing, and commenting on your own content? So maybe you have a social media person, or maybe you outsource your basic social sharing to somebody else. Maybe Haley Marketing Group does it for you. But once it's done, then everybody in the office should, at a minimum, be liking the things the company shares. Ideally, they're sharing and commenting on it as well, because for LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter, when people in your organization are liking, sharing, and commenting on the company's content, that creates engagement for that content. And the social media channels, they see that engagement and they say, oh, this must be relevant to people. So, hey, let's show it to a bigger audience, and particularly on Facebook, which you get to. The more internal people will like, share, and comment, the greater your free or organic distribution will be to other people. Then there's LinkedIn publishing. You can, for those who may not be familiar, you can go on LinkedIn and you can publish a post, just like you do a status update. And so when I'm there, I can take a blog post and I can repurpose it as a blog on LinkedIn. Now, why would you do that? Because LinkedIn is going to share your content with people who they think will be interested in your content. And you're going to get different reach from sharing your content on LinkedIn than you're getting from sharing it on your own website. And you're going to get different reach when you publish directly on LinkedIn than when you share an article from your website to LinkedIn. So if I just use sharing on my website to push an article to LinkedIn, that's going to get different sharing than if I go directly to LinkedIn and put the article in as a LinkedIn Pulse post. So we want to be doing some of both. Then there's groups. LinkedIn has announced that they are finally bringing groups back into the fold. Many of you may realize that groups were a part of the main LinkedIn product a few years ago. LinkedIn pulled it out and sort of hid it. You can see on the picture in the upper right corner where it says work. Right now, groups are hidden under that drop down, but I haven't seen the new interface for groups yet. LinkedIn has said we are bringing groups back in a big way because we see groups as being integral to having a social community on LinkedIn. Well, you can then, with groups, join groups that are focused on specific skill disciplines, join groups that are location specific, join groups that are based around a particular interest or technical knowledge. And once you join the group, then you can ask questions, you can contribute to questions, you can share blog content, you can message other group members. Maybe there's not a group for the people you're trying to reach, so why not start a group? So if I'm trying to attract IT professionals in New York City, or maybe I want to get more specific, and I want, let's see, JavaScript developers in New York City, maybe I want to start a LinkedIn group just for that interest area. And then I'll promote that group because I can control who's a member of it once I've started the group, and everybody in the group now becomes a potential either job applicant or future job applicant or referral source. So if I can have my own group that I own, and I've seen several staffing companies do a great job of starting groups and nurturing relationships with groups, it becomes your own private LinkedIn talent community. Oh, and the nice thing is, other than the time to manage it, no cost. Then there's sponsored content, where you're paying to sponsor your content that's being shared on LinkedIn. What I love about LinkedIn sponsored content is you can get really specific about who you're going after. So if you're an executive recruiter and you're going after very high-level people, it may make sense to use LinkedIn sponsored content. The downside to LinkedIn sponsored content is it's really expensive, and it starts, I haven't priced it personally very recently, a social media team may want to help me out, but it was like $7.50 per click. And we've tested it with some clients, and what we found is the cost of the clicks is so high, then the actual conversion rate, especially for recruiting to somebody applying to a job, hasn't been worth it to do sponsored content. But for high-level people, really hard to find talent, maybe you're doing life sciences recruiting and they're super hard to find individuals, sponsored content is a way to get your message directly in front of the exact right audience. And then there's the LinkedIn Premium services, Recruiter, Job Slots. I heard yesterday that they announced an ATS. So LinkedIn's premium products are worth testing for better access to candidates, better access for direct recruiting. The Job Slots for your higher level, hard to fill positions can be great because LinkedIn has reach to the right candidates, especially at the professional level, better than anybody else in the world. So it should be a portion of your social recruiting for active job seekers. When using LinkedIn, I want you to think about how to expand your reach. So when you're posting content, I mentioned you can do it from your company page. People in your organization can share it. But there are other ways to get greater reach of your content. So one is by using hashtags. And so this company, Top Dog Recruiting, I happened to find a post they did on LinkedIn, and I loved it because it was hashtag crazy with Salesforce, Dreamforce, Sales, AE Enterprise, New York City, jobs, career, sales jobs, software, SaaS, excuse me. Now, I don't know which of these hashtags are working well for them, but I did a search for Dreamforce jobs, thinking about how you might sort of hijack a conference like Dreamforce. And Top Dog Recruiting was the first company that came back as a match because of their hashtag of Dreamforce and jobs in their LinkedIn post. And this is actually a specific job ad for a sales executive in the New York City metro area for Salesforce. So they use hashtags effectively so I could find their post. Then the other picture on the screen here is our very own Todd Lewandowski when he is doing one of our Secrets for Staffing Success podcasts. That's Todd in action in the new Haley studio. But you'll notice that he tagged a client in his comments so that the folks at Hamilton Riker would be able to see that we were recording their content, and maybe they'd want to share it on LinkedIn with their audience. And then Matt Lozar from our team actually directly tagged Kelly McCrate, the person we were interviewing, so he'd see we were talking about him, and if he likes, comments, shares that, his network is involved. And so by tagging, using hashtags, influencers, commenting on news and events, we can make our content findable to more people. And the last one about expanding your reach is building a sharing network. The first sharing network are people inside your organization. But how about your candidates as part of your sharing network? Could be your temps, your alumni, or maybe you even pay people to be brand ambassadors that when you share content, they'll go and share on your behalf. That's what a lot of big brands do. They find people on Instagram who've got great pictures, who have a huge following. And then they'll go after those individuals saying, hey, we'd like to sponsor your Instagram account. And they'll give money, they'll give free clothing or free whatever product they sell. They may just give discounts in exchange for the person on Instagram using hashtags and tagging other influencers because it gets them a lot of reach. Well, you can do the same thing by building your own sharing network of people who will share content on your behalf to expand your reach. Lastly, with LinkedIn, we want to look at automating and some tools. LinkedIn is going to be a mix of manual and automated sharing. You can automate sharing a blog feed to your company page, to the status updates of individual recruiters or salespeople in your organization. You might take just the jobs, a feed of jobs for a specific recruiter, and that recruiter might share them to their LinkedIn account, or a news feed. Maybe I subscribe to, or I've set up a feed on a service like Feedly. I've set up my own feed of news stories about whatever industry I serve. I may want to set up that feed to automatically go to various social profiles. So Deliver It, DLVR.it, is a service I use to automate sharing of content from Haley Marketing's blog and from our Lunch with Haley website. And LinkedIn's one of the places that I automate my feed so that every time a new post is written or new content goes into that feed, an update goes out for me without my having to do anything. So we use Feedly to aggregate feeds. We use Buffer and Deliver It as tools we use to share. And with Buffer specifically, we do scheduled sharing, so we can choose the time and day we want content to be shared. All right, next social channel, Facebook. Facebook, for many people on today's call, is going to be an awesome recruiting channel. Your company page is probably going to be the least important, but we're still going to start there, having a great, well-branded company page, just like LinkedIn, where you're sharing content, you're sharing jobs, you're focusing on getting reviews on that page. But the big thing is going to be status updates, some from your company, others from individuals in your organization, so that, again, you're getting your networks to see your content. One of the ones that is underused in staffing right now is Facebook groups. Just like LinkedIn has groups, so does Facebook. There are groups for people with special interests, groups for people in specific geographic markets. There are groups for people just around jobs. So you can find groups on Facebook that you can use as a place to share content, share jobs. Now, do be aware, if you get into a group, some groups are only about jobs, and so it's absolutely appropriate to share every job there. Some groups prohibit sharing jobs. So there, you just want to be part of the conversation and don't be someone who's looking to troll members just for recruiting purposes. Be there to make your brand visible. Share content that brings people back to your website, then get them to your jobs. Directly marketing jobs on Facebook. Our experience has been hit or miss. Some of our clients in their markets, it's incredibly powerful. Particularly, we've seen some good results with light industrial, with healthcare, of putting jobs on Facebook and targeting specific audiences. For professionals, our own personal experience with higher level positions hasn't led to a lot of qualified traffic, but it's absolutely worth experimenting with different jobs, different job titles. And lastly, before we talk about Facebook sponsored, is using live video. Going live when you're at an event, a job fair, a conference. Facebook really encourages people to leverage its own video platform. And so when you go live, it will expand your reach to your target audience so that you're getting more eyeballs on your live post. So if I'm doing a job fair, sure, let's run a live feed of things going on at the job fair. If I'm at somebody else's industry event, maybe I go to a trade conference, maybe I'm at a presentation, I want to go live to show what's going on. Great way to create engagement, because you can be producing video for your personal account that there's no cost to production other than holding up your phone to take a video of what you're seeing. And then it will create engagement with your audience and the connections of your audience as they start to see what their friends are watching and liking and commenting on when live video goes up. But with Facebook, the most important thing to think about is sponsoring your content. So unfortunately for company pages, Facebook is in the business of selling advertising, and they're not going to show the things you share on your company page to very many people unless you put money behind it. The simplest way to put money behind it is just to do a boost. And I'm sure if you're the administrator for your Facebook account, you're regularly seeing messages from Facebook saying, hey, boost this message to receive so many more impressions. We're not huge fans of boost because it's not a targeted audience. What we want to see you doing is really doing social targeting, the bottom of the list, targeting job ads, targeting other content at the personas that would be interested in that content. So with a job ad, you can't target by persona because Facebook's in the middle of a class action lawsuit right now, and they've eliminated most of the demographic-based job targeting, but you can still target by job title and geographic location. But with your other content, you can absolutely do demographic-based targeting. So if I'm sharing educational content, I can get really specific about who I'm sharing with it to find an audience that is exactly the right fit for my jobs and try to go after those passive job seekers with social targeting. Now, the two in the middle are ones almost everybody's going to want to think about today. Retargeting, which is going after people after they've visited your website, and we can put a Facebook tracking pixel onto your website or tracking code that gets installed onto the visitor to your website. So when they go to Facebook, they're seeing your ads. So for everybody in today's call, you've probably seen a Haley Marketing Group ad in a place or two. That's because we do retargeting on Facebook. We also do it on Google. If you've visited our website, if you've visited our Lunch with Haley site, we're going to have content following you around. Now, as a recruiting firm, you could do retargeting for your company as a whole, but you could also even get down to the level of specific jobs or job categories and say somebody's visited a job in the accounting category, so I want ads for accounting jobs to follow that individual around. So I get very specific by matching my retargeting based on the pages they saw on my website. And lastly, there's matched audiences, which is where I can upload an email list to Facebook, and I can match the audience and only show ads to people on that list. So I can get, the idea to doing matched audiences is that I can bring people back with whom we had a past relationship. So I can take all the candidates in my ATS and bring them back a second time. And one of the people on our PPC team said, you know, you could also go into your ATS, do a search of everybody with a specific skill code, and then do a matched audience to Facebook for people who match that list. And now I could target ads to only people who had a certain skill code. And so I'm bringing people back who are the exact right fit for the kinds of jobs I'm trying to fill. And the last one that's not on the list is to look at geofencing. I can actually target my ads within a specific geographic area so that I'm being really location specific about where the ads are showing. And so for all of you going to Staffing World next week, please come by and say hello. Also, when you check Facebook, you just may see an ad from Haley Marketing Group because we will be geo-targeting the conference facility in Washington next week. On to Twitter. I know a lot of staffing companies sort of feel with Twitter. I don't know if it works. I'm not sure what to do about it. Well, it's a place to share all your jobs. And I personally find that for most people, Twitter has a love-hate relationship. Those people who hate it don't understand why anybody uses it. Those people who love it think it's the best communication channel. I know some people who abandon Facebook because all they do is they live on Twitter. So on Twitter, it is okay to feed all jobs. People are on Twitter but not going to see all your shares at once. So when you're feeding all your jobs, you're not overwhelming your audience with content. So it's okay to put everything there. Also, you want to automate a feed from your blog. So all of your blog content is going to Twitter on your company page and to the pages of individuals in your organization. You want to monitor mentions. Somebody's job should be to check out where are we being mentioned. Are we showing up in hashtags? Are we showing up in other places on Twitter? So we can respond if we need to. And just like we talked about with LinkedIn, we can use tagging. I can tag influencers. I can tag events. And this can be hashtagging or using the direct message, the @ tag, so that I'm letting people know I'm talking about them or I'm talking with them or I'm talking to them. I can let people know I'm talking about an event that they might be searching for, or I can hijack the news. And I can hashtag something that's going on in current events and pop culture and tie it into what I'm doing. I know, many of you, I'm sure, saw the story about the Banksy painting that self-destructed. So a $1.3 million painting right on purchase went through a shredder. So what did McDonald's do? They jumped right on, made a similar version where the box of French fries turned into French fries coming through the shredder. Very fun little picture. And then they used Twitter and other social channels to get that message out, that image out, and to be tagging people who are looking for the Banksy information to find the McDonald's French fry advertisement. Clever way to leverage somebody else's audience using tagging. You can also look to either create or leverage talent and community accounts, sort of like groups on Facebook and LinkedIn, to look for accounts that focus on jobs in a specific community or jobs in an industry, and then be tagging that account when you're sharing jobs, or tagging that talent community if you're sharing content. And lastly, direct recruiting. If you're trying to find people who are really hard to find, No reason not to do a search of people on LinkedIn, and then also search them on Twitter, find their Twitter accounts and see if you can reach out directly, because I can go one-to-one after people, and if they'll accept my connection request, now I can start having a conversation in a channel that they may be more responsive to than they are to email or the phone. I mentioned the hijacking events on Twitter, so hashtags, tagging others, direct messaging. There were some cool examples. Next week, Staffing World. So there are people already, and they have been for almost a month, starting to take advantage of the hashtag Staffing World in all of their tweets. So the folks at My HR Council, I don't know if they're going to be at Staffing World next week, but on September 28th, they were tagging both Staffing Tweets, which is the American Staffing Association account, and Staffing World, the conference hashtag, to visit us. Yeah, they're going to be there because they're saying visit our booth. Then, of course, we did it too. So we started by sharing some content from last year's Staffing World. And then one of my favorite things to do at conferences is direct messaging. So the couple of examples you see here are from my personal Twitter account, and I was at various events, and so my friends Mike Cleland and John Thomas, I saw they were live tweeting, and actually before I knew either one of them that well, I used Twitter to reach out to them, start a conversation, and arrange meetings at the conference by direct messaging through Twitter while I was at the event. Instagram. Okay, I'll be honest here. I had to go to the experts in the office on Instagram. I am not that much of a regular Instagrammer, so I went to the folks that are, and they had some great ideas on using Instagram to build your social following. Doing it through your company page, creating talent community pages, but then having a content strategy and an audience strategy. So your communities can be around jobs, skills, or interests, just like the other social networks. On your content strategy, you want to think about being very visual. Instagram is all about pictures. So what can I share that's going to capture someone's eyeballs? A few good examples on screen now, sometimes celebrating people, sometimes celebrating holidays and events, sometimes like collage of pictures, just things that are interesting to look at. Then I can think about the frequency. How often are we going to be sharing on Instagram? Is it something that we're responsible for every day? Do I want to be doing stories very regularly, or is it something that I'm better off doing less frequently? Then I want to be looking at potentially, do I have exclusive content that's only available on Instagram? So I'm giving that audience a reason to follow me. Maybe I share hot jobs sooner. Maybe we do an employee referral reward program that's only available if you see it on Instagram. And on Instagram, entertainment tends to be more valuable than education. So I really have to make what content I share visually engaging, fun to look at, whether I'm doing single pictures or I'm creating stories, series of pictures, or videos. I want to do things that people are going to find enjoyable, because most people are using Instagram as a form of entertainment, and they're just sitting there scrolling through things they're interested in looking at. I would absolutely think about stories that are fun. And maybe you have a blog post on how to dress or how not to dress, and you could have a great time with like interview fails. And just, again, thinking about what you can do that your audience will find interesting, so that you build the audience on Instagram, but then you send them back to other content on your website. And your audience strategy is very similar to everything we've talked about so far. Who am I trying to reach? Where are they on Instagram? And then how do I find influencers who already have reached into that audience? Maybe start to build a relationship with those influencers. How do I tag individuals and events so that I can sort of co-opt someone else's audience? Maybe I can invite guests to share on my Instagram account. I was recently talking with a lady who she was a video producer for somebody who had a huge following on Instagram, and she had 40,000 followers on Instagram. And I said, how did you do that? She said, I got to do a guest post with the guy I was representing. So she essentially was a guest speaker on somebody who had a huge audience, which instantly translated to her having a huge audience. So think about, are there audiences that already exist where you could be a guest, or you could invite the person who has a huge audience to be a guest on your account? And lastly, think about sort of building tribes, talent communities that you could create of people who want to share war stories, want to share challenges, want to talk with one another, create an Instagram account just for that tribe. But that would be a really small, targeted, focused list of people that you're trying to build relationships with. Snapchat. And if I knew a little about Instagram, I know less about Snapchat. Other than the fact that my kids no longer talk to me anywhere because they're only on Snapchat, and that's how they talk to everybody. So my guess is you're going to see that as a more primary means of communication in the workforce over the next few years. So on Snap, what can we be doing? We can be doing company branding. And the pictures I found here is I just Googled examples of companies that are using Snapchat for recruiting, and I found a lot of them. So they're trying to do it to build their company brand by being an interesting place to work, by showing off events they're going to, and also targeting advertisements around events like graduations or job fairs. So people going to those events or on Snapchat see that there are filters available specifically for the event that they're at. Some people are using Snapchat to share education, where you can see some examples on screen now. And then McDonald's worked with Snapchat to create an actual Snapplication. It's like a 10-second job application that you can do from Snapchat. You're not going to do that for a high-level CFO role, but if you need unskilled labor, going to the Snapplication, send me a picture, send me a couple of things in the message, may be sufficient to get them into the beginning process and to schedule an interview. All right, YouTube. Let's talk about some examples of what to do with YouTube. Clearly, company branding. I can create a series of videos. I can create a channel that shows off our organization as a great place to work. I can create videos to advertise specific jobs. The example you see on screen from Spectrum there is an ad, a video ad for a very specific job where we had an actor read a 25-second job post and we wrapped it up with some calls to action to apply now or view of other available jobs. You can do explainer videos, those little animated videos that explain things. A lot of people don't understand how staffing companies work. So you can explain to them what your process is going to be like, how you're going to help them find a job, what you do to represent talent that the competitors don't, how working with you is going to be a better experience than they'd have trying to find a job on their own. Those little explainer videos, short, 30 seconds to no more than 3-minute overview of some aspect of recruiting that your candidates would like to learn about. Any other education, maybe taking blog content, it may be taking a live webinar that you're doing or an event that you're at and recording it, but teaching people things they're interested in. Go back to those personas, goes back to the challenges, needs, and interests of your audience, and think about how do we create really good videos people will be interested in. The last one here is quick questions and answers. We've been doing a lot of iPhone-based video, and we being a couple of guys on our team who will answer a question with a 1-minute video, and then they'll share the video on social media. Well, it can also go to YouTube and have a whole library of quick Q&A, because a lot of people, when it comes to videos, want really easy, quick to consume content, not necessarily long-form content. And a little self-made with your phone video is perfect Q&A, quick-form content. Next up, industry community sites. And just to give everybody a bit of forewarning, if we haven't figured it out already, we're already at 2 minutes to 3, and I still got a lot of tips to go. So I'm not going to end today's webinar on time. I'm going to actually go over because I don't want to shortcut all of these ideas for you. If you have to go, don't worry, we are recording, so you'll be able to catch up on the probably last 10 minutes or so afterwards once the recording is live on the lunchwithhaley.com site. All right, industry community sites. Regardless of the types of people you place, there may be talent communities already out there. Now, they're not necessarily recruiting communities. They're places like Stack Overflow and GitHub that exist to support IT professionals, or nursing sites that exist to support travel or traditional nurses. Go do some research on Google to find out what sites are out there in your industry, and then figure out how can we be a contributor. Are there forums or blogs we can support by asking questions, answering questions, or contributing content? Can we do a webinar for the community? Can we supply just comments to things that other people are already putting out there? Can we do Q&A? With these industry communities, some of them sell job advertising, some of them prohibit job advertising, but don't be a parasite. Don't just be about recruiting. If you're going to join an industry community, be about the community. Show off your technical expertise in the industry you're sharing content in. So if I'm on GitHub, I better know something about coding. And I better be able to ask questions about coding or ask if people know developers who are expert at certain things. I can be doing recruiting, but it has to be very soft in the way I'm doing it. And I do it by sharing expertise. or asking insightful questions of others. I also want to monitor content that helps me stay up to speed on what is my talent community interested in, and where are there opportunities that maybe I could respond to companies directly, say, hey, I see you're having a real challenge with this particular issue. If you're looking for recruiting support, we can find people who do that on a contract or full-time basis. The sites that do allow you to post jobs, I would absolutely test posting jobs to those sites, because those are communities of just the talent you want to recruit. Some may operate on a pay per ad, others will operate on a pay per impression, so it's performance-based. I would test it either way. All right, I mentioned a couple of things earlier that aren't traditional social recruiting, but do impact social recruiting. The first is SEO, and thinking about active and passive job seekers. Active job seekers are probably searching for jobs or your company by name. Passive job seekers are looking for answers to questions. So what we're trying to do is build what we call a keyword hockey stick, meaning people are finding us for more and more keywords. And so I jumped onto a client's account and I blocked out the entries that show the company name, because of the top 10, 5 of them were people searching for this particular company's name, but 5 of them were people searching for other things, including current employer, which I can't imagine you have to go to Google to search for your current employer's name, but hey, 815 people did in the last month. So look at the impressions though. This company is showing up in searches thousands of times for keywords that have nothing to do with their name, nothing to do with the word staffing. And there's more than 1,000 entries in this table showing the keywords they've ranked for. So this keyword hockey stick is thinking about writing content, blogs, and other web pages, and your job posts around things people are searching for. So we're being found for more and more keywords. And it's called a hockey stick because your SEO traffic will sort of start flat and then go up at a sharp angle, just the way the hockey stick is shaped. So you get more people coming to your site from search for hundreds or thousands of keywords. You have to make sure your jobs are optimized so that they're found by search engines, particularly non-Google search engines, that the SEO is done on the individual job. You want to make sure you're answering questions that your audience, that you know that persona, you know their challenges, you know that interest, answering questions they have with content, so your website becomes an authoritative source for answers to career-related issues. Just like we did on social media, we can hijack events by writing lots of blog posts about a job fair that's coming up or a conference we're going to. And putting all of those posts on our website allows our website to show up when somebody's doing a search for that conference or that event. Press releases. I can be sending out press releases around success stories, around events we're going to attend, around clients we've served, if the client allows us, or candidates' success stories. When we're sharing that PR, it drives more inbound links to our website, so people who are content seekers are more likely to find our website. Those are the passive candidates. I can write content for others, and lastly, I can think about Google for Jobs, making sure that jobs are not just optimized for on-page SEO, but we're actually adding markup so that they show up in that little blue Google for Jobs box. All of these things on page here, they're not directly recruiting, but they're ways to think about making your content, your website, and your social media engage with active and passive job seekers. And like we have search engine optimization, we also have pay-per-click advertising. So we talked about retargeting earlier. I can go after people who have already been to our website, because if I can get a job seeker back a second time, we know from looking at data that that person is twice as likely to apply to a job. I can do those matched audiences with PPC on Facebook, LinkedIn, on Google, where I can upload an email list and match my advertising, so I'm only showing it to audiences that match the list that I've uploaded. I can do lookalike audiences, which is asking the social channels, find more candidates that look like my network, and then I can share content with that network or that audience to try to bring them to my website. I can do social targeting, again, only with educational content, but going after specific people based on their demographic profile, that target persona, to share information that's related to their career that they'll find interesting. I can buy AdWords on Google. So somebody doing a search for something that's either a career-related question, a jobs-related question, Or a content-related question will actually be less expensive because it'll be less competitive. So I can get somebody searching for, in the bottom left corner picture, somebody searching for, in this case it was removing back office headaches, was the search term somebody was looking for, but this company, USA Staffing Services, showing up with an advertisement, only one there, for somebody who is doing a search for back office headaches. I can also use pay-per-click advertising to target ads. The upper right corner is an example of a display ad that could appear right on a talent community website, making me more part of the community so people in the community see my brand, builds my employment brand, makes me more of a trusted resource for that community. And I mentioned earlier geofencing. So I can use pay-per-click advertising to target ads within a very specific geographic area. Lastly, we've got emailing and texting. So just a way, think about using email, using texting, one-to-one communication or one-to-many communication to do job alerts, share newsletters, send out event invites, creating autoresponders after somebody applies to a job, and also to get service feedback. With email and texting, what I'm looking to do is nurture relationships. Yes, I may be doing a job alert to try to get somebody right back to apply to a job, but I really want to make the channel of direct communication open. So if I'm doing job alerts, I want to supplement it with other types of emails. Hey, how's our service? That kind of feedback. Or here's some great content that I thought you'd find valuable. Other types of emails that my candidates find really useful. So they see email as just another way we communicate, like we use the phone, like we use texting. I want to be using this channel of communication to stay top of mind with my talent pool, so that when I do have a job to fill, I can see if they're interested, or I can ask them for referrals. All right, and that brings us to our final few slides. We're going to kind of wrap this all together. So with social recruiting, what's the strategy to putting together the content for all these channels? Well, in marketing, we talk about a formula called AIDA, or AIDA, awareness, interest, desire, action. So we're trying to use our social content to create interest. It's got to grab your eyeballs. Live video tends to be the most interest tracking, then video, then images, then just plain text. So I want my content strategy to be geared more towards the video end than images and text, but I probably want a mix of all four, and then I want to use different types of content on different social media at different times to keep variety in my social content strategy. I'm going to use short format content to capture attention, short format, pictures, just social graphics, interesting quotations, holiday messages, just things where all I'm trying to do is get your eyeballs, not really trying to educate you, not necessarily driving a specific action, but reinforcing the brand, reinforcing my likability with the content I'm sharing. The long format content is more about building my brand as an employer you can trust, building my brand as a career counselor. So here I'm going to share videos, white papers, ebooks, so that I can help you as a job seeker in your career. And the long format job content is part of that long format content that you share as well, building the brand for the types of jobs you fill. And when you're sharing jobs on social media, you want to share the jobs that really are appealing to people to get them back to see all of your jobs. With regard to video, so many different ways you can use it. I'm just going to click through the list. From doing direct promotions for your company, advertising individual jobs to show what they're really like, branding your company and why you're a great place to work, testimonials, training videos and explainers where you're showing people how to get a job or how to work with your company. As I mentioned, the live events before, and then I love testimonials, getting your candidates and getting your clients to say in their words why you're such an awesome organization to work with and why you do more than other staffing companies to help people get placed. The key to all the social video and social graphics is to make them attention grabbing, and where you can, to do real pictures, real people, real events, things that people would recognize. I like the Opti staffing did real reviews, so they didn't use a picture, but they actually used real candidate endorsements and the message, real reviews. With social graphics, you want a bold featured image. You want to share some testimonials from clients or candidates that differentiate you from the competition. If you're getting reviews on social media, those make great social graphics. Holidays and company events, also things to make pictures about because those are great short form social graphics to share. If you're going to industry events, you might have a short graphic about the event, or may have a long format talking about where to find you at event or sessions that you'll be teaching. You can use hashtags like Monday Motivation for short format content. Again, more about brand building here. Or Throwback Thursday. How-tos, other longer format information where you're educating people. And the examples on screen here, again, not meant to be a comprehensive list, meant to just get you thinking, get you brainstorming with your team. How can we be engaging when we share content? On the short format content, keep it real, great pictures. Even when we have a video clip, we want the static image of the video to be something as compelling as possible so that people want to click. Then we want to think also about long format. And so you're on long format right now. In fact, extra innings long format. Now that we're 10 after 3. But webinars, ebooks, white papers, surveys, podcasts. Long format content is ideal for building trust, making people see you as an expert with your clients and with your candidates. So thinking about, do we do a webinar series or occasional webinars to help people find a job or show people how to manage their career? Do we put together ebooks or salary surveys or other long format information that our target audience would find very valuable? If my target persona is somebody just getting out of college and getting their first job, maybe I want an ebook on how to get the best paying first job or how to take the right first job on your path to becoming CEO. If my target persona is somebody in their 40s or 50s, it may be more about taking your career to the next level, what to do if your career gets stuck, how to ask your boss for a raise. I may want to do long format content around any subject that my audience is going to find really valuable. And in terms of your sharing, you also have to match the medium to the audience. If my target audience are people who are applying for CEO roles, I'm probably not using Snapchat. I have to optimize my timing. There are certain tools, and you can get help from us if you need it, figuring out when do I want to share, because I want to share when my audience is online. Sometimes my audience is more online during the day. Sometimes it may be around lunch hour, but very often it's in the evening or on weekends. And there are tools that we can use to actually look at when are people online. I want to schedule my sharing using a tool we looked at like Buffer that allows us to choose when do I share so I'm sharing the right content through the right channel when my audience is active. I want to repeat sharing. I don't want to assume that because I shared it once they saw it. So I've got to share the content multiple times to ensure that my audience sees it. I don't want to be obnoxious sharing the exact same thing every day, but it's absolutely fine to share a great piece of content several times, or maybe share something that you did a year ago, repeat it again this year because it's still really good information. And lastly, we just want to think about recruiting smarter, tying this all together for today. First place to think about is your employment brand. Are you really a best place to work? Are you an organization that's going to retain talent? Because if you're not a best place to work, you're going to spend a lot more money on social recruiting and on job posts than you need to spend. Am I 3+ stars on all the review sites? Before I go invest a ton in new social recruiting, I'm going to spend a lot in reputation management to get all my happy candidates to say great things about me on social sites. Have I optimized my career site so that I'm minimizing fall off of people going from social media to our site to applying for a job? Do I have goals for my social recruiting? What types of jobs am I trying to fill? By when? What quantities? What types of audiences do I need to reach? Have I created those personas so I really know the problems and challenges and interests of the people that I want to address? Do I have separate strategies for active and passive job seekers? And do I have different content plans for each type of job seeker, driving them different content on our website? And of course, don't forget, be social. Do I have people in our organization who monitor this stuff, who spend a little bit of time every single day talking to my audience, engaging them, converting our shared content to one-to-one conversations? And when I put all those plans in place, put them in action, see what happens, and then just continue to evolve. It's a process, not an event. All right, thank you very much. As I mentioned, we were going to go about 15 minutes over, and that's exactly what we did. So thank you very much for everybody who has made it to the end. I will stay on even longer to answer questions for people, but before I sign off for today, for those of you going to Staffing World, you may have already received our new Smart Recruiting Checklist, nearly 200 questions to help you evaluate the 4 pillars of recruitment marketing. If you didn't have it, here's where you can get it. You can go to our website, haleymarketing.com/SW, Staffing World 2018. There's a little form to fill in, and you will get the checklist right away. All right, and I will stay on the line for any additional questions. For those of you who have to go, completely understand. I want to thank everybody for being part of today's extended Lunch with Haley event. I hope you enjoyed social recruiting, and look forward to seeing those of you who have to leave on our next event.